Hi folks, welcome back to the Woodland Orchard and welcome to what appears to be spring. Well, in the last video we were looking at the pollarding and coppicing for the season, and with that completed we've been preparing the material for a new dead hedge project down in the orchard, and I've also been working on some live hedging with training some hazel on the western boundary of the site. So in this video we'll take a look at dead hedging and hedge training. Hedges wanted, dead or alive. And dead hedging is very much Jeanette's department, so she's been doing most of the preparation, and in a future video we'll follow the construction of that new dead hedge in some detail. But comments I got after the pollarding and coppicing video was that we didn't seem to produce much harvest from it, but actually I think that was probably misleading on the video, because the piles of hazel rods and willow rods were scattered around the site, not in one big pile. So we did get quite a lot of material out of that. Certainly I think enough to indulge ourselves with quite a large dead hedge installation down on the edge of the coppice. This is a dead hedge that we put in over the summer adjacent to the kitchen garden, and essentially the structure is two parallel rows of stakes with material that's dropped in between them. Now, because we had some invasive grasses on this site, we actually cardboarded the bottom of it just as a bit of an experiment to see if we could reduce that grass coming back through. That's not actually necessary, it was just something that was site specific. We do actually have a slightly different approach to some of the other YouTube channels that have covered dead hedges, in that we borrowed some techniques from hedge laying. And in particular, as you can see, we use thinner hazel rods to form a binding across the top of the posts in order to add strength, and I actually think it looks pretty good as well. And actually, after we'd started filling this dead hedge, we added some diagonals to add further strength. We tend to put dead hedges in convenient locations, so if there's an area where we'll be doing quite a lot of cutting back, it's quite handy to have a dead hedge within a couple of steps, so you can literally cut something like bramble and then just drop it into the dead hedge that's closest to you. And another technique we use is, if you have a large amount of material, such as this bramble that we cut back, we can bundle this into a single item so that it's easier to compress and maximises the amount of material that can be fitted into the same space. And this structure provided us with a timely reminder as to why we build dead hedges, because as the temperatures rose, the ladybirds that had moved in the autumn gradually began to emerge, and it wasn't long before this dead hedge was covered with the ladybirds. And that inspiration is sorely needed as we contemplate the installation of an additional 14.5 metres, that's over 47 feet, of new dead hedge, which will run alongside the bathtub pond, so called for hopefully obvious reasons, and then along the main path into the orchard. And of course, elsewhere on the site, the boundaries are mainly marked by living hedges, and on the western side originally this was very overgrown stand of Lleylandi, which, although it provided good nesting opportunities for many birds, didn't benefit light levels in the orchard, and certainly nutrient and water deficiency was very clear around the base of this hedge. There was also a difference in elevation between this site and the next, so water and nutrient had tended to shed off on quite a steep slope in places. So I built that up using timber from the trees that had been cut down, to provide a flattened terraced area into which I planted hazels between the trunks of the conifer which had been left as standing deadwood. And originally the plan was to lay the hedge, which involves partially cutting the stem before laying it at an angle. Instead, I decided to just bend these stems over and tie them into the standing deadwood. I would term this training the hedge rather than laying it, and because the stem is still fully attached, I'm hoping that it'll actually live a little bit longer than a traditionally laid hedge. Certainly so far the hedge is thickening up really nicely, and I'm hoping these stems are going to grow into each other and effectively create a living fence rather than just a simple hedge. The only issue we've really had is that the standing deadwood is now starting to rot at the base, and the root system has pretty much disappeared from these trunks, so they're starting to get a little bit loose. In this particular case, I felt I could take the standing deadwood out and use it elsewhere on the site, and then fill the gap with a new hazel from the on-site nursery. In many places, we no longer need to tie the hazel to the old conifer trunks. The hazel is now so dense it can be tied to itself. We'll come back and have a look at what it looks like in the summer, of course, but the evidence that it's already benefiting wildlife is already there. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you have any comments or questions, please do let us know in the comments. I hope to see you again in the next one.